Welcome back to the Crosley Speed Sports Studios. You're listening to Fast Car to NASCAR with Mike Wallace. My name is Jeff Kent. Today's guest, longtime NASCAR crew chief, Jeff Hammond. And once again, here's Mike.
Well, Jeff, thanks for taking that first segment and dealing with the new car. We appreciate that. That's normally out of our ordinary of our show. So let's get to the show, which the story is who was Jeff Hammond before he's Jeff Hammond? Tell us a little bit about, did you get brought up around racing? Was it something, when did you create an interest in it? And give us a little background of your life.
All right, let's get one thing straight. I'm Jeff Hammond. I was a nobody then. I'm Jeff Hammond. I'm a nobody now. I'm just like any other guy out there on the street or any other lady that's, a mom, whatever. Because where I was raised over in Dorado, North Carolina, we're just a bunch of old country contractors and farmers, and that's kind of like where I started out, was helping my dad and my granddaddy with the construction company. And my real desire was to play professional sports, more importantly, to play football. And as I was growing up, junior high and high school, that was what I wanted to do. But somewhere along the way, I guess I was 12 years old. I'll back up here a little bit. I was 12 years old. Saturday morning, I was still in bed. My uncle come knocking on my bedroom door. And he said, "Get up." "Why?" "I don't want to go fishing. I hate fishing." So he said, no, we're going to do something good today. And he was going to go to Lancaster, South Carolina, and he was going to buy a dirt car, and he was going to start dirt racing, and he wanted me to go with him. And that was my introduction to stock cars at the time, up close and personal. It was a 1956 Ford with a 240 six-cylinder engine in it, and it was painted school bus yellow. And that's where it all began, was working out underneath his carport during the week, loading up in the truck on Friday night, going to Starlight Speedway down in Monroe, and it's Saturday night going back to Lancaster, South Carolina to race on the dirt tracks here locally, and eventually Metrolina, Carolina, you just all the different racetracks around here, Concord. But it was a great learning lesson for me because I hated doing homework, and I couldn't work on the race car. Mom would let me work on the race car until I had my homework done. So I'd come home from school, get my homework done, go work on the race car. And it went on like that for about a year and a half, and then my dad realized the interest that we had, along with my brother, who's 3 years younger than I am, and we started building our own race car. And so we raced out of what wound up being a shop. We took our carport and closed it and made it into a race shop. We started building engines. Dad had a mechanical background from working in the military, as well as some of the local car dealerships. So we started building engines, and he teach me how to pack wheel bearings, and he had a friend of ours come over and teach me how to weld when I was like 14. So that was kind of like the beginning of understanding racing, but I still hadn't cracked through that idea I wanted to have a career in racing. I still wanted to be a football player all the way up through high school, and when I went to college at East Carolina, I still wanted to do that. I liked racing, but I love football.
And so you love football, so what happened in the football world, or what didn't happen in the football world?
I didn't stay healthy. I wound up tearing up my left knee. Got all the cartilage and everything ripped out of it. And back in those days, that was more of a major surgery than an arthroscopic type surgery. And recovery was always a problem. Rehab was not always 100% successful. And when you're no bigger than I am and was no faster than what I was, I mean, you can have a lot of heart, but when you get hurt like that, you lose the one thing that makes a difference, and that's your speed and agility. And I just didn't have the speed and agility once I had that knee issue, and realized that I didn't want to stay down in East Carolina and not be able to play football. I didn't want to stay down in East Carolina and cost my mom and dad money when I could come back home and go to Central Piedmont or some other college close by to get an education. And the other thing was, couldn't play football. They still got a few race cars in Charlotte, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Hey, let me ask you something about that from the football side, if you don't mind. And I'm trying to I'm probably diving in deeper than I should, but at the same time, I've always wondered this because, when I chose the opportunity to come racing for a living, I did it because I thought I would be miserable the rest of my life if I didn't give it a shot, right? I didn't know. I mean, I had a business deal going on back in St. Louis, Missouri. I had two brothers that were racing, and it's like, man, if I don't go do this, I'm just really not going to know what I could have.
You'd still be in the vacuum cleaner business.
And my business would still be sucking. But it was a good business. But when you got hurt in the football world, Jeff, and you couldn't pursue that dream, were you okay with yourself moving on to something else, or did that bother you for a period of time? I'm just curious how that works. If you want to call it a mind game a little bit, where you know.
No, you bring up a very valid point, and even today, it still bothers me.
Okay.
Because it's a feeling, and Mike, it would be like if you had never put a helmet on, or if you'd have put a helmet on one time and got a little taste of what it was like, and never went any further, would you have been satisfied? And I got a taste of what it feels like to run out of the tunnel and go on the field. I know what it's like to score a touchdown. I know what it's like to be on defense and basically, clean somebody's clock and how good it feels to do that. And I still remember the times I got my clock clean. So it's all about the experience, and it's all about the moment, living in the moment. And that's always, going to linger to probably the day that I die. I mean, because I love sports as a whole, all sports. I mean, football was my number one deal. I enjoyed playing baseball. I quit doing that in the end of my junior high year so I could spend more time with football. But also, I enjoy playing golf. So everybody who is involved in sports, they should understand and relate to this. It's in that moment that you do something that makes you think, you're the GOAT. You're the GOAT that day,
Jeff Kent comes in and tells me that's his golf game all the time, and I have a hard time believing him.
I mean, I play golf at least twice a week, and it's just like it's birdieing a hole, or what happens if you birdie 2 holes in a row. You're like, I'm the man today, right? I can't,
Well,
it's a great feeling.
How about a chip shot off the green or out of the sand, and all of a sudden, you roll it in.
Right.
Hey, Mickelson ain't got nothing on me. Hey, Tiger who? It's like it's the mind game of feeling like you got this thing, but then all of a sudden reality hits you and say, I ain't got it. It's got me. It's making me look like a fool. So
I just chipped in for eagle, and then I duck hooked my drive on the next hole. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah,
it's a crazy game.
Great.
But that's really what it's kind of like all about, and that's the reason why I think I gravitated back to the racing side was, where can I get that kind of a feeling? What kind of satisfaction? Well, working on cars and going to, winning a race on Saturday night ain't too bad, and then going and getting involved with the progression through my career of knowing people like Tiger Tompkins-Stone and Walter Ballard and Elmo Langley and Jim Van Diver, Frank Warren. I mean, you get down the list. I mean, there's
some
a lot
famous
of people.
names you just named there.
Right.
Well, I mean, they were the ones that were bringing our sport along. Yeah, we had our superstars. I mean, I was around Petty and Pearson. Like you mentioned earlier. I was blessed at one time before I went to work for him. To be able to say I knew Kel Yarborough before I ever got a job, with Junior Johnson. But being around those guys and being in that atmosphere where somebody like Harry Hyde is in the garage stall right next to you, and you sit there and you listen to him talk, and depending on who was driving for him at the time, and he was such a, I don't know, he was such a contrary but yet fascinating individual by the way he would do business. I mean, he had a little notebook and a pen he kept in his shirt pocket, and he was always writing notes down. They didn't have those really nice-looking notebooks that were, had all the information. It was like his little secret diary he'd write every weekend. And I remember watching him do that. Or, seeing Dale Lemon, change tires on the 43 car because he was the next pit beside you. I mean, it's just, it was the moment. And fortunately, the time that I was able to be in the sport, I was very young, and I was able to hang out with what was eventually to be Hall of Fame mechanics and drivers and other crew chiefs.
Before they were Hall of Fame drivers and crew chiefs, you're a young boy standing by Richard Petty, Cal Yarborough watching. Did you realize it was a big deal at that time? Or was it just something to do? Was it just kind of a job? Or did you go, this is going to be special, or this is special?
Mike, I never thought at that point in time that our sport was to be put on a pedestal like Canton, Ohio, with the Hall of Fame for football, or baseball, and it's just I never thought racing would ever get to there. And don't ask me why, but it had not happened yet, and so it never really crossed my mind. It was a job, but as that job progressed, it went from being a job to being a passion. And I can't think of anything else I'd rather do. I mean, it was so satisfying to know that you did work on a race car and you beat 36 or 40 other competitors, depending on what the field size was at the time. And, you went to victory lane because, you were carrying tires that day, or, you changed and put the race engine in and you didn't leave any oil lines loose. You know what I'm saying? It was being a part of and working with individuals like Herb Knapp, because Herb was the one who hired me at Junior Johnson's. But working with people like that and being around, Jay Kelder, and I mentioned Harry Hyde, Bud Moore. I mean, it was super cool. I mean, it really was unbelievable. And Mike, you may never knew who G.C. Spencer was, but playing poker with people like that on Friday and Saturday night, because we didn't have a lot of racing at night, and there wasn't a whole lot of good stuff on TV, and that's just what we did when we went back to the racetrack. Everybody went back to the hotel, the Holiday Inn, the Days Inn, and we go to somebody's room and play poker after we got through getting something to eat. That was our entertainment.
Were you a pretty good poker player?
I got good lessons. Let's put it that way. In the end, I got to be a pretty dang good poker player, because otherwise they would take your money in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, we just got a minute or so left in this segment, but let me ask you, you mentioned early in the show about your desire to play football, about putting a helmet on. Had you ever had the desire to put a helmet on and be a race car driver instead of the great?
Oh, yeah.
You did. Did you ever get in one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I've raced mini sprints, late model dirt, some asphalt stuff. I mean, I actually, I drove an outlaw, not a world outlaw car, but at up in Pennsylvania one time I raced a wing sprint car with a carburetor on instead of being fuel injection.
Okay.
And won the race. I mean, I've won some races. I outraced Kirk Shermerdine down at Caraway Speedway one time, and I've won some races and raced them. And the other thing was cool whenever I got into the sport. I was one of the very few guys, because I really wasn't. I was kind of small, but I could get in, Cale's car, because he was, a lot shorter than everybody else. And I put all these seats in and everything. And when we got to that point where we needed to test stuff, I mean, we raced and had carbon fiber brakes on our Monte Carlo in 1979.
Oh, wow. You were way ahead of time then, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. Chevrolet was, had, and back then, we're just getting into the disc brake era. And so this was something new, and Chevrolet had an opportunity to get them. So, I mean, I took them, went up to Wilkesboro, and me and the boys went up there one time, and we ran these brakes to find out how they would hold up before we raced them at Bristol one time. So getting a chance to even drive stock cars was kind of cool.
That's when stock cars were really stock cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were.
One of the first cars I bought was a 1977 Monte Carlo. I love that car.
Yeah. And I tell you, the greatest thing about this show, I just learned something about Jeff Hammond I never knew. So on that note, Jeff, why don't you take us somewhere and bring us back?
We'll do that. We'll be back. We're talking to Jeff Hammond. You're listening to Fast Car to NASCAR with Mike Wallace on the Speed Sport Podcast Network, presented by Crosley and NASCAR Digital Media.